Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to examine how to use the CyCon machine learning tool to perform regression over a set of data using a support vector regression, or SVR, machine learning model. Before we begin, let's review the fundamental concepts of regression and SVR. So what is regression? Regression is a statistical technique for characterizing the relationship between a dependent variable and one or more independent variables. This is usually accomplished by drawing a line of best fit through a set of data and analyzing how the data is clustered around that line. Regression analysis is used to forecast a variety of events, such as stock prices, the weather, energy consumption, etc. Here are some example graphs showing the regression of different data sets. When doing regression, there are two main types, linear and nonlinear, which are shown on the two bottom graphs. Linear regression is simpler, and as the name suggests, it will give you a linear line of best fit. Nonlinear regression is significantly more complex, which is why we often use machine learning models like support vector machine to accomplish it. Now, what is support vector regression, or SVR? SVR is a supervised machine learning model, which means that it uses labeled training and testing data sets. The model will analyze the training data sets to identify the support vectors. These support vectors are used to construct what is called a hyperplane, which is used by SVR to predict the placement of data during the testing phase. So when we move into the testing phase, the model uses the hyperplane to predict the y values for each x value in the testing data set. The model can be evaluated by comparing the predicted y values to the y values in the testing data set using various metrics like mean absolute error, mean squared error, or R-squared score. Now, I know that this was a little bit more technical and in the weeds, so let's go over an example of kind of the pipeline that happens when we are training a support vector regression model. We start with our original data set, which when graphed looks like this. To perform regression on this data using SVR, we are first going to split the data into training and testing sets. The training set will be used to train an SVR model, giving the model the information it needs to construct the hyperplane. Once the model has finished training, we move on to the testing phase. Here, we feed the x-axis of the testing set to the trained SVR model. Our model then spits out its prediction of the y values for the given data. We can then compare the predicted values to the true y test values as shown by this graph. Using the y test and predicted values, we can also calculate the mean absolute error, mean squared error, and the R-squared score to evaluate our model's performance. Next, let's examine how to follow this process using the CyCon machine learning tool. Here we have the CyCon machine learning user interface. As you can see here, we can enter in a project name as well as the goal and scope of our project. In this case, I put down that the goal of this project is to showcase how to use the CyCon machine learning tool to perform support vector regression on building energy usage data acquired from the National Renewable Energy Laboratories Research and Support Facility. So now let's go ahead and upload our data. We'll scroll down here. We're going to click Select Uploaded Dataset, and we're going to use this heatingtemp.csv file. As you can see here on the right side, we have two columns in this table. The first is for the outside wet bulb temperature, and the second is the kilowatt hours of energy that were used to heat the building. Now we can go ahead and scroll down to the pre-processing section, and we're going to go ahead and select the heating kilowatt hours. That is going to be our target or our dependent variable in our support vector regression experiment. What we want to do is we want to see how much energy is spent heating based on the outside wet bulb temperature. So once we've selected that, we're not actually going to do any of the pre-processing. We're going to go ahead and scroll down. We're going to select machine learning algorithm. From the class, we're going to scroll all the way down, and we're going to select SVR for support vector regression. Keep scrolling down, and we're going to select the R-squared metric. Now, we're going to go ahead and hit perform. It takes a few seconds for the results to show up, but once they do, this is what you should see. First, we have the results of our metric. In this case, we used the R-squared score, and our regression had an R-squared score of 0.65. The next thing when you're doing a regression is you'll see a graph comparing the heating kilowatt hours to the outside wet bulb temperature. All of the red dots represent the individual testing points in our testing data set, and the blue line here is our regression line. Next, you'll also get a table that contains the results of the experiment in a tabular form. So you can see we have a column for the outside wet bulb temperature, which was our independent variable. That was the variable that we were using to kind of get an idea of what our heating situation is going to look like. We have all of the test values for the heating kilowatt hours. And then we have what our model predicted for the energy expended heating the buildings based on each individual wet bulb temperature. So that has been how to use the CyCon machine learning tool to perform a regression using support vector regression. Thanks for watching.